What a year it's been. From protests in Hong Kong, Lebanon, and France, to the perils of climate change and cutting-edge technology that's reshaping the global economy, 2019 has been a banner year. Open your calendars and let's start from the beginning. January 23rd. Venezuela is in turmoil. The economy is in freefall, 1,000,000% inflation, and though President Nicolas Maduro controls much of the country, Washington has just recognized the opposition's leader as the country's interim president.
I'm a young man from Venezuela who wants to recover our democracy, our liberty, with all our people.
To the west is Colombia, where millions of Venezuelans are fleeing. I spoke with the president.
In the case of Venezuela, Maduro is sponsoring terrorists to plot against the Colombian people.
Against your government.
So that should be not only denounced, but it also gives a strong message that we all have to be united to condemn that regime.
Fast forward a month, February 27th, Hanoi, Vietnam. President Donald Trump is meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un for a second time. It doesn't go very well, but the threat of escalation has been lowered. That's progress for the world. Not so much for those in the gulags or those just struggling to survive in North Korea, or even those who've escaped, those like Yeonmi Park.
Our existence is only for the party. It's not for ourselves or for anything else. We just live for the party.
Back in the United States, news is breaking, isn't it always? It's March 22nd, and Robert Mueller has finally delivered his long-awaited report to the Justice Department, ending a nearly 2-year investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. The public will get the report a month later. It's dropping. It's dropping.
What's dropping?
The
balloons?
The balloons, the report. What do we think? What should we watch for?
We should read it.
Yes.
I think it's very important for people to read it and not just rely on immediate, out-of-the-box spin from the White House, from the president's allies, and even from the president's adversaries.
And across the pond, the Brits are confronting their own constitutional crisis. March 29th. This is the date that Brexit, or British exit, put them together, from the European Union was supposed to happen. But political disillusionment now hangs over the United Kingdom.
The truth about the Brexit referendum is that those who argued for Britain to leave the European Union articulated anger about the state of the country, but had no answers for the state of the country.
Further east, the United States is leveraging its trade power. April 18th, Washington announces new sanctions against Iran's Revolutionary Guard after unilaterally scrapping a nuclear deal that had been brokered by the Obama White House. Later, Iran shoots down a $130 million U.S. spy drone, nearly bringing America to war. Trump has a decision to make.
It's very clear that what he wants in Iran is some type of a summit where he can sit down with Iran's leadership, but he has no interest in conflict.
Keep heading east. May 23rd, the world's largest democracy has just handed Narendra Modi a landslide election win, making him one of the most powerful prime ministers in India's history. Modi's anti-Muslim policies, both at home and in the contested region of Kashmir, are bedfellows with a populist pro-growth approach aimed at tackling the country's most intractable problems.
Are you starting to see the average Indian look to China and say, you know what, that system just feels a lot more effective?
I think a lot of Indians value democracy. So if it comes at the cost of sacrificing their democracy, my guess is many would think twice.
Back to the States. Miami, Florida has taken center stage. June 26th and 27th, the first U.S. Democratic presidential debates kick off in two groups because there are so many of them. The bid to replace Donald Trump formally begins.
As long as Donald Trump's in the White House, none of these things, these critical things, are going to get done.
In fact, his presidency is the most corrupt in modern history.
When people are stopping you on the street, what are they usually asking you about?
Most of the time I get something like, yang gang, or like, hey, support you. Someone called me the Asian Oprah.
As time wears on, the field narrows, and others jockeying for a chance to challenge the Donald fail to find their footing.
We do not have the means to pursue this campaign successfully.
My campaign for president simply does not have the financial resources to continue.
North of the border, another contest is underway. October 21, and Canadians are picking their own leader. Embattled Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is among the world's remaining globalist leaders, and though he edges out a win, Trudeau loses his majority in Parliament. The opposition supports, among other things, stricter limits on immigration.
My focus is not on what is popular or not. My focus is on how to make sure that Canada does well in the 21st century.
2 weeks later, November 4th, the Trump White House formally notifies the United Nations that America is withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord, despite widespread warnings of growing peril. And there is still no political consensus.
Half of all of the emissions that we've put into the atmosphere from the burning of fossil fuels have come in the last 30 years. That's since Al Gore published his first book on warming. It's since the UN established its IPCC. And that means that collectively we've done more damage to the climate knowingly than we ever managed in ignorance.
3 weeks later, President Trump makes a surprise trip to Afghanistan. It's Thanksgiving, and talks with the Taliban are going nowhere. America has been at war for nearly 2 decades, and the Washington Post will soon publish a confidential trove of government documents that suggests the war is unwinnable.
You commanded our forces in Afghanistan. Not easy service. What are we doing there?
Well, you have to go back to what did we think we were doing.
Finally, our calendar brings us to the end of the year, and coincidentally, one of the world's biggest stories.
Madam Speaker, the House of Representatives must now consider 2 articles of impeachment against President Trump.
A move of historic proportions, one that will reverberate across the coming U.S. election and set the tone for what promises to be a deeply contentious 2020. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all the rest.